Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay is on Monday, October 17th, 2016 at 12 noon, and Wednesday, October 19th, 2016 at 12 noon on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at dub.metrofire.ca.gov. Board Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the consent items. Board members, are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we adopt consent.
Thank you. Thank you both. May we have the vote?
Director Mitchell.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali. Aye. Wood.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Clark. Aye. Kelly.
Aye.
And Scheidegger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move to presentation items. I'd like to ask Chief Wells to present a certificate of life-saving commendation, please.
Directors, Mark Wells, Fire Chief. It is tonight my sincere pleasure to introduce, and Chief Castatini will be bringing up to the podium, Xander, a 10-year-old young man who's definitely a hero in our eyes, and Leanne Miller, his grandmother. On August 14th, 2016, Metro Fire Engine 109 and Medic 109 responded to a medical aid call. They arrived to find Xander, who again is 10 years old, caring for his grandmother. Xander's grandmother was in a diabetic crisis, and there's no other adults in the house. She was actually staying with them overnight. So Xander immediately noticed that his grandmother was in distress and doing exactly what we teach. He dialed 911. And he was very articulate and understood his grandmother's medical history and was very helpful in answering the questions as the responders were en route. So Captain Carl Simmons from Engine 109 said that Xander showed poise, courage, and confidence and was attentive to every need of his grandmother and very helpful to the responders and the paramedics that arrived on scene. So tonight, also, I think the interesting point of this, too, and I'd just like to ad lib here a little bit, you'll notice that Fabergé is a service dog, a Labrador Retriever, and in this particular case, Fabergé actually went down the hall to notify Xander, put his feet up on, or her feet up on the bed, and continued to nudge to point out that Leanne was in distress. An incredible story. That service animal program is an incredible gift to our community and the people they get to serve. And Xander, you are truly a hero, because heroes do things that are above and beyond what is normal. And you, sir, young man, are a hero to the firefighters. So thank you for what you've done. And so right. So with that, we'd like to show a short video clip, and then we'll present the award.
I hate that.
A 10-year-old boy from Sacramento County called a hero by firefighters for saving his grandmother's life. Now the community plans to honor his efforts. The boy's grandmother is speaking about her experience.
CBS 13's Angela Musalem is live in Carmichael tonight with more on what the woman's grandson did that kept her alive. Angela. Well, Tony, Adrian Alexander is not just being called a hero by firefighters, but also by his grandmother, Leanne Miller. She tells me if Alexander had not called 911, she could have suffered major brain injuries, or worse, she could have died.
I remember coming to, and the paramedic said, "Boy, you really better thank your grandson."
Leanne Miller doesn't remember much from the morning of August 14th when she went into diabetic shock.
Abby said,
Miller has been a type 1 diabetic for 57 years and has lost most of her vision from her illness. That helps her get around the house, and it was her dog that ran to her grandson, Alexander, who was spending the night, and nudged him for help.
so too, and suddenly she started moving and holding her stomach and she couldn't talk.
We're pretty proud. Pretty impressed by it, young man.
Metro Fire Captain Carl Simmons responded to Alexander's 911 call on August 14th and says it was the boy's bravery and maturity that saved his grandmother's life.
We asked him questions about his grandmother. What's her medical history? How long has she been like this? Does she take any medicines? Well, she answered all those questions.
Miller says her grandson would even help administer her insulin shots. In good spirits, a month and a half later, Miller looks back at what happened that morning and says having her grandson over that night was a blessing.
I just love him to death, and I think every day that he's my grandson.
Such a brave young man, and Alexander will be given a certificate for his actions by the Sac Metro Fire Chief next month at the department headquarters in Mather.
One cool cat too, he kept his composure.
He really did. I think he needs a cape. I really do. Superhero.
Okay. Thanks and report. Notify the elderly.
Is it here? It takes just a second. Hold it. How long does it take? It's good to go. Yeah.
Okay. Is this on? Yes, now it is. All right, let me step around you there, young man. So I would like to, the life-saving commendation from the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District to Xander Miller. Here you go. Thank you. And here, let's take a quick picture with that.
Get something for the dog, too.
Okay, would you guys like to say anything? Put you on the spot?
Not happening.
Well, again, wonderful job, and just a great story, and we're very happy, Leanne, to have you here, and to Fabergé, you're a great animal, and nice job. One more round of applause.
Thank you all for that. I want to make one comment. I think it was all appreciated by all of us, and Xander, you truly are a hero. I'm not sure Fabergé enjoyed the applause, however. I was a little intimidated by the look. Well done. All right.
Mr. President, can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, please.
Good kids come from good parents and good grandparents. Where would those folks be? Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
All right, to them.
Right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well said. All right, item number 2, ISO protection class ratings. Chief Turner, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Terrific.
And we'll get this loaded up here right quick here. Melissa. Okay.
You go down to here. Xander, go away.
Ah, thank you. God. Thank you.
I think that might be your clicker.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Steve Turner. I'm the battalion chief, battalion commander in Arden, Arcade, and Carmichael, Battalion 7 on the C shift, and I'm also your ISO officer. So first, some thanks. First thanks are to Chief Hinkie and Chief Wells for all of their support. This has been a number of years that we've been working on this to move forward with this, and it requires a lot of support to make that happen. So there's additional classes and a lot of things that we've got to be involved in to make this work. Very glad to report that we have all very good news, and it's a very nice thing to hear. So one of the things that I really learned in this process is it's not just the good work that you do, but you've got to be able to document it right. If you can't annotate what's going on in your district, if you can't keep track of that work and be able to report that and show at every level, not just at the level of reporting to ISO, but they're looking at every level we use, all of the ways we are tied to NFPA and other national standards, then we're not getting all of our job done. And that played a really big part in the improvement in our fire scores in this ISO rating. So the last part is that this is part of Metro's connection. What we connect to property owners, to residents, to folks that run commercial entities in our district. This is a big part of our connection to them because this affects their bottom line, their insurance rates. And it's about how well we do our job, how well we all have to work with each other to make sure the budgets are right for this, to get the right people in the right place, and what staff does to support all of that. So it's part of what we do as far as business at Metro. So our survey process started in 2011 with a review of the last survey. The last survey, we'd had some pretty critical scores, and Chief Hinkie and then Deputy Chief Rice said, we need to make a change to this. And they said, we're going to put a lot of effort in this. It's going to take a number of years, but this is the goal. They kind of picked that out. So we started back then. A little bit about ISO. It is for the insurance companies. It's their inside baseball about who does the math for them on how much it costs them anywhere in the country to insure something. So they do a lot of actuarials. They will look at a number of different factors, and that's been their job now for 45 years. They use the PPC, the Public Protection Classification, and this is what they use to determine how much costs are going to be for underwriting and whether folks are even going to write fire insurance for individual properties across the country. It doesn't evaluate EMS, wildland. It doesn't evaluate those things. It's for fire suppression of properties, real properties only. PPC scores run between 1 and 10, with 1 being the highest scores in most protected areas. The few fire departments around the country that have ones generally will brag about that as a Class 1 fire agency. It's a pretty steep spot to get to, certainly something for us to shoot for, but we're not there yet. General scores are determined by evaluation in 3 areas: the fire communication systems, the fire department themselves, and the water supply in a given area, and they're weighted by those percentages that you see in front of you there. In 2012, ISO listed a new benefit, and that was investments that fire departments do in community risk reduction would be considered as part of their score. It's currently used as bonus points, essentially. You can get up to just a little over 5 bonus points, and that became very important for us this year. PPC provides fire departments and water departments with an external benchmark. Just like fire certification for fire agency certification programs, this is an external benchmark about how we're doing. It's not just the inside, it's external, and that's a big deal. We're able to show and demonstrate against marks across the country about how we're doing business here in Sacramento. One of the changes that ISO wanted to do in part of 2012 is they no longer wanted fire departments to just go after ISO ratings. They really want to grade us on what we're doing for our area. And so staff choices about what works in this area, as long as it's tied to national standards like in FPA, we're given those higher scores. So no longer is it looking for a widget that they want to have on every fire engine from California to New York. It's now on what's needed in our district, and that's been a big improvement for us. Lastly, they don't analyze all aspects and not intended to determine any compliance with any state or local laws or other requirements. This is for the insurance companies. It benefits our citizens because that's where their rates come from. So our previous public protection classifications. The last evaluation was done in 2006, and we saw a drop in ratings, most of our service from 3s to 4s, and we'll show that. You may recall a number of phone calls that you got, we certainly got at the fire district offices about that drop, about concerns about all that. Prior to 2000, most of our predecessor agencies at Metro Fire, when we were rated, had scores ranging from 3 up to, I came from an agency that almost all of our district was an 8. So much poorer. We've really improved in these years, and mergers have been good to us and good to the people we serve. Areas in Metro Fire are now with no hydrants and sparse station spacing received between an 8 and a 10 back in 2006 also. So the 2016 survey, we are in 7 ISO zones, and we'll go in a little more detail on these in a little bit. ISO determine these boundaries. They're based upon real property development and the cities within our area. Mather McClellan were newly broken out for this year. That was a little change. So we've got 7 different areas that we're rated in. If you look kind of in the center, you see the pink area there? So that is essentially most of our developed area, short of the cities of Citrus Heights and Rancho Cordova. So that services the largest number of people in that area, and we did see some of the greatest changes in our scores in that area. As a reference, our 2006 survey, we only had 5 areas, and we had 3s in Citrus Heights and Rancho Cordova and 4s throughout the rest of the district. This was a poor showing, and we received a number of calls for it. Our 2016 survey showed significant improvements. So 2s in 2 in Citrus Heights, which was a nice big jump, and inside what's called the West Zone, our major population area, we went from a 4 to a 2. All of our areas saw increases except the Rancho Cordova area, and I'll get into a little detail about how that area improved greatly, but based upon how the scores show up, it couldn't move from a 3 to a 2, and you'll see that. The other new part was the separation of Mather and McClellan zones. Related to that, we did try to bring us all into one zone with ISO, and at first they were going to try to do that. But after seeing just the wide variety of areas, and the hope was that we would be able to average out our scores and bring greater scores across the district, but based upon the variety of the areas we serve, they're just not able to do that yet. Okay, split scores. You'll see a 2Y and 2Y and a 3Y in there. Those split scores refer to properties that are within 5 road miles of a fire station but don't have any hydrants, don't have a credible water supply. So they get a little lower score. They're still close to a fire station, but without those hydrants nearby, that water supply is really important. And so they'll get a little lower score with that. Any property that's beyond 5 miles from a fire station and beyond 1,000 feet of a credible water supply are rated as a 10. We don't have many of those properties. We'll get calls specifically on those, and if we're not sure about where something is at, I will actually send out a fire company out there, and they will do measurements in order to see where everything is at so we know what answer we're giving them. Okay, the areas we were rated in, 3 areas plus community risk reduction. First, fire communications. Their general score was a 7.75 out of a possible 10. That was a little bit of a drop from the previous rating period, but it's not really comparing apples to oranges because there was a complete overhaul of how this section is graded. With new technology that's been available nationwide, they changed the way they graded these. Fire boxes, like alarm boxes we've all seen, usually in a historical center, are really not the way we communicate anymore. There's a fire down the street from a business. And so with that technology, there's new requirements. So that's changed. The other thing that makes it a little bit difficult on our fire communications is that the Sacramento Regional Fire and EMS Communication Center doesn't have just one boss. Anybody that's been part of that organization and helped with managing that realize that they have multiple masters. They've got to work with multiple agencies, and that means that things can sometimes move slow. The great news for us and for fire dispatch is that they are making the changes. This score, this snapshot in time happened before they started their serious changes they're making right now. I would anticipate that they'll be in the 9s at the next rating period in 5 to 7 years. And so this investment that's being made in that right now will be a big benefit to their score. The fire department. All of our scores were between 31 and 40 out of 50. We had a little bit of a range there between our different areas. Every one of our fire scores improved. Every one of them. So it comes down to better documentation, better apparatus and equipment inspections. So you've heard of hose testing and pump testing, ladder testing, all that type of work that's done. So it's done very consistently and recorded very consistently. The systems that are in place now, the folks that have set that up, are as reliable as can be, and we got very high scores in that. Our training hours and certification credit went up significantly, and that's been a real improvement. So we are now being given a certification credit we didn't before on certified company officers, certified fire officers, certified chief officers that was not part of that score before, and that's been a benefit in our training division and tracks all that for us. Our engine pump and ladder company credit went up. So key part here, they didn't go look at every engine and go look at every piece. They wanted to make sure that all of the way we go buy things, the system that we already use in our district works off of NFPA systems, and they want to know that was in that area. So we got very high credits for having the right types of engines, ladders, and such. And then a new credit this year was our standard operating guideline credit, and that's a regional program that we're part of that we helped bring forth, and we got a good credit for that about how we do things. So we do have some shortcomings. There's a couple of these are no surprises. Our greatest weakness is still in our less dense areas, and that's where we're going to have staffing and station proximity. So there's going to be areas that we don't have stations within 5 miles of each other, and so we're not going to get full credit in those areas. We have, for the most part, 3-person company staffing. That's not as high as 4, and so we're not going to get the highest score in those areas. And those are all processes as departments grow and all that type of thing. It's just identified. It's not a surprise to anybody here, but that's part of why we did not get the highest scores available. Our reserve engine fleet needs to be beefed up a little bit, and that can be a challenge. It's sufficient for most of our operations, but we did not get the highest score with that. And then one area of training that was noticed was our pre-fire planning, and we'll be able to focus more on that to get that score higher. But overall, our training score was a 9 out of 10, so it's going to be very hard to move that very far. Water supply. If you look carefully at this chart, you'll see we have 15 water purveyors in our jurisdiction. So where fire dispatch has a lot of bosses, our water program has their own bosses. Each one's individual, and they have their own priorities. Many of our water purveyors were very helpful and responsive to this survey. California's drought actions have impacted all of our communities, and that had some effect on what's been happening before the snapshot in time was taken and as we move forward. That's going to be a limitation that we've got. Water supply scores were between 29 and 35 out of 40. We had mixed improvement. Some water areas went down. The scores went down. The best scoring was in the water delivery supply systems, and particularly the water agencies that were doing a very good job, and I'm going to call out Citrus Heights as a real high performer. They were able to really demonstrate what they had done in upgrading their water systems. There's more than just Citrus Heights, but they were really able to demonstrate that, and we got very high scores in those areas, 90 to 95% in most of those areas. The biggest weakness we had was the inspections and flows of working hydrants. Anybody want to guess why right now?
That's wasting water.
Yeah. So we got very poor scores in those areas, and it is kind of important. I will tell you, as a newer firefighter, when we did those inspections, when we were able to flow those hydrants, which is a required part of that process, we did identify dry hydrants. And so it is important, it is valuable. But we are in a drought. We do have other legal requirements and restrictions on us. So there's things that our hands are tied on. Community risk reduction. Very good news here. The investment in that's been done by the district over the last 5 years had a significant impact on our scores. We received in the 90 to 95% value of scores for this throughout this whole list. So specifically, this focuses on how we do inspections and what is the training of those inspectors, how we do public education and what is the training of those public education technicians, and how do we do fire investigations and what is their training. You didn't get very good scores if you just had the person filling the seat. You had to have them trained. You had to show that. That was very important. So I would suggest that we continue that, and I would see that this is probably going to be wrapped into the part of the score at some point in the future. Rather than being bonus points, it'll be part of the overall ISO regulation. Here's how it was in the 7 different areas. Citrus Heights score raised from a 3 to a 2. So you can see the grade of 3 ran from 70% to 80%. That's how that works. So Citrus Heights moved up to a 2. They are very close to being a 1. That would be a very big deal. None of our district has had 2s ever. This would be a big deal. The East Zone, out where I started in Slough House and serving parts of out in Orangevale and parts of Florin, Mills. Our score there raised from this is not correct, I'm sorry. It raised from a 4 to a 3. From a 4 to a 3. 68 to 74. Mather went from a 3 to a 2. Mather went to a 2. So what you don't see in here is any fire stations of Metro Fire inside the Mather zone, correct? But all of the response area is within our mileage and our ability to do that. And we also received a bonus from admin being here and from personnel assigned here, fire personnel being assigned, having the equipment they need to respond if necessary. And we did receive some bonus from that. So that was good. McClellan went from a 4 to a 3. The North Zone out in Rio Linda, Alberta, and our little spot in Placer County went from a 4 to a 3, but it had the greatest increase in our score. It had an 18-point increase, which was the greatest. So I am sure that we'll be able to get that to a 2 quite soon. The Rancho Cordova maintained at a 3, but if you look at the scores, it was just barely into a 3 when it started, and it moved up into close to what our averages are, around a 78. So it moved the same overall, the same level as everybody else. It just maintained the same score. And our West Zone had our biggest score increase, although the numbers weren't the biggest, but the score raised from a 4 to a 2. With 15 points going across, it was almost at a 3 already. It passed through the 3 and into a 2. And I've got the wrong map on there. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, wait a minute.
So let's get past that. Okay, overall trends. ISO updated and streamlined their survey process. They made this faster, and they count on our documentation and our being aligned with national standards as what works. We improved our documentation and our demonstration of our efforts with response planning, how we take care of equipment, what we're doing in the training division, and certainly our community risk reduction efforts. We do have areas we can improve on for all 3 sections. This is going to result in better rates for property insurance throughout the district. And I would tell you that we need to work to maintain what we've gained. So that's one of those things that you never want to lose ground once you get it. I want to thank the rest of the team that helped work on this. Captain Brad Reynolds, Captain Eric Haas, Firefighter Dustin Rodriguez, Inspector Krishana Fields, and Inspector Angela Brew. They were all great help in putting this all together. Our mapping specialist, Dennis Murray, out of Fire Prevention, was also a good help in making sure we had all the right displays and everything. So if you've got any questions or anything, be glad to field them.
Good job, Chief Turner. Any questions, board members? Director Gould.
Chief, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. You know, the question I guess I have is, for every 1/10 of a point increase, do we have any idea from the insurance agencies what that means in real dollars, in savings to our citizens? Because I look at, okay, I went from a 3 to a 2 and clear almost to a 1 in the city of Citrus Heights. What does that mean to the property owners in real dollars?
We did pull that on a brief sketch to kind of see what we were going to have. What we want to be able to do is come to you and say, hey, over the next 5 years, this will mean $2.3 billion. We can't get that number. In talking to the insurance agents about this, they said there's so many other factors, their ability to pull just that. I said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a property, and I'm just going to change the rate from a 4 to a 2. And what do we have? What do we have with that? I said, you're probably going to see on a residential property a couple $100. So we could take that out and bring that out where that works across the district and all that. But with all the variables, that type of stuff, wasn't able to give you my best guess on that. What we know for sure, when we were downgraded in 2006, the calls that we got, and those of you that were on the board that received personal calls, and I was there when we got the questions about this, it was extensive. And so this will come out. Now, good news might not be followed up as well as the bad news back then, but we know that that will make an impact.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, is that number, and it sounds like if we went on a single-family dwelling, a $200 or $300 annual savings because of the ISO rating increase, how does that factor into how much they might be paying in property tax? Because I guess it is, if we can save you that much money in the ISO rating, does that cover your property tax allotment that we get? And that's something that I think a citizen might hear and say, you know, I pay $200 a year in property tax that actually makes it to Metro Fire, but because of the ISO rating, I save $300, I'm up $100. That's a good thing.
It would be a good thing, absolutely. I think based upon when we talked to the two different insurance agents about how this plays, the percentage is not going to be that high. But we're going in the right direction.
Right.
All right, Director Rosali.
Chief, thank you for this. This was an excellent presentation. I heard you say that Citrus Heights is verging on moving into a 1. And what does that necessarily entail? What would that have to happen in order for that to occur?
Well, we've looked at that. The areas that we have to improve that are across the district that we could affect that, and this is really me just stretching on some stuff. Mm-hmm. If we gain the point that I'm confident fire dispatch is going to gain on the next go-around, they're going to gain another point pretty squarely. Then we would be looking at another 2.5 points we would need to gain in their fire area or their water area. Their water scored very well, so it would be fire. So the two areas in fire that would have the greatest impact on that area is staffing numbers of firefighters and station proximity. Based upon where Citrus Heights stations are at, they probably do not have a station proximity issue. And so doing a better job of station proximity there probably would not affect that score. So we get down to its personnel numbers. And that's the biggest for districts or fire departments all across the country. That is the biggest one of these nuts to hatch on this type of thing, and it always will be. So.
Thank you.
Any questions? Director Mitchell.
Not a question, but more of a comment, with your pleasure. With what Chief Turner just told us, I think we're in a unique position. We're gaining a new administration in the next month or so, and I would humbly suggest that if it came out of that in working with the board, if we set a goal, if you will, we set a goal of 4-man engines and 5-man trucks. Agreed, that might be 20 years before we got there. And it might be we start with just one station. That's not to say I'm dissatisfied with the administration we have, because I think they've done a fabulous job. But if we set the goal and we can just get one station to that 4-man engine or one truck to that 5 in 2 years. But I would ask my fellow directors and when the new administration comes on board to at least consider setting that as a goal. So that's my comment, Director. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
President Scheidegger, could I make one quick question? I just want to recognize Chief Turner's dedication to this process. And I think it needs to be, and I know he articulated it earlier, but he's running a battalion on his normal day job. And in addition to that, this is a special project, and they did it with a great team that he acknowledged. But special kudos to you. Thank you for taking this on. It's been a long, this is one of those projects that it wasn't a month or two project, as he indicated. This has been going on since 2011. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for sticking with it. Thank you for the positive outcome and really your diligence. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I agree, Chief, and I would add on behalf of the board, I'm sure that I just love this kind of objective process. You've been doing it, as the Chief said, since 2011 with a fine team. We appreciate your efforts. The citizens need to appreciate your efforts. not just because of tax savings, as has been mentioned, but because we're enhancing our public protection through these efforts. And I don't want to let it go by without saying that we're also enhancing the safety of our firefighters out there because you're doing this. To you and your team, on behalf of us, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing future reports.
Yes, sir.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Action items. Mark Jones. We're going to talk about the bid award for RFB 1608, the asphalt project on Dudley Boulevard.
We're going to talk about asphalt.
Good evening, President Scheidegger, Directors, Chief Wells. My name is Mark Jones.
Thank you.
I'm the purchasing manager for the district. I'm here tonight to present information on our formal bid purchasing just conducted, and will be asking you to approve staff's recommendation for a bid award. RFB 1608 was issued on September 23rd, 2016 for an asphalt project at our Fleet Division on Dudley Boulevard. Advertisement was sent to 5 surrounding builders exchange groups. It was published in the Sacramento Bee. It was on our district's website and with publicpurchase.com. Mandatory job walk was scheduled for October 5th, in which 5 firms participated. Those firms were Sierra Asphalt, Delta Construction Company, Central Valley Engineering, Martin Brothers Construction, and California Pavement Maintenance. All 5 firms are authorized to bid on public works projects by virtue of their registration with the Department of Industrial Relations. This bid closed yesterday, October 12th, and the bids were open this morning, October 13th. We did receive bids from all 5 firms that participated in the job walk, and the board clerk has just passed out those tabulation results to you. This with your staff report already in your agenda packet. Sierra Asphalt submitted a bid of $144,300. California Pavement Maintenance had a bid of $173,515. Martin Brothers Construction had a bid of $161,000. Delta Construction came in at $146,000. And Central Valley Engineering gave us a bid of $134,700. Funds are budgeted in this fiscal year 2016-17 final budget for asphalt replacement projects throughout the district. And with that, staff recommends to have RFB 1608 for the asphalt project at 4425 Dudley Boulevard awarded to Central Valley Engineering, the low bidder, in the amount of $134,700. And I thank you for your consideration. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Board members, any questions?
Yes, if I may.
Director Kelly.
Bids were due on
12.
the 12th.
12th,
What
yes.
time on the 12th were they due?
4 o'clock yesterday.
Okay, all right. It said 3:31. I'm thinking those guys
That- yeah,
run it
that-
right up to the
yeah,
mark.
yeah,
And
that's
I'm
when
wondering,
they-
did you guys actually put 3:31 down when they were due at 3:30?
Now we day stamped them when
Okay.
they arrived, yes.
Excellent. I would just encourage you guys check licenses.
The licenses were all checked ahead of time. We wanted to make sure because they can't actually bid on a project unless they're registered, so we checked them all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we adopt.
Thank you. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Board clerk, the vote, please.
Director Mitchell,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Barnes,
Excuse me, aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Scheidegger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we're going to put off action item number 2 until after closed session. So then, we're going to move ahead to the president's report. I just wanted to announce that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Metro is a big player in that, and I understand at our next board meeting, we're going to have a special attendance, a certain pink fire truck in particular, and fire engine, I'm sorry. And I would like to invite board members and anybody else who is going to participate to adorn themselves in pink for this event on the 27th, if that suits you. All right. With that, we'll move to the fire chief's report. Chief Wells.
Thank you, President Scheidegger. So upcoming events, this Saturday on the 15th is the California Firefighter Memorial and the Firefighter Memorial Stand Down. That is at 11:30 a.m. at the Firefighter Memorial in Sacramento. It's a gathering to pay tribute to our fallen brothers and sisters that have died in the line of duty. 29 members this year will be added to the nearly 1,300 firefighters who have fallen in California since we became a state. So obviously a very deep meaning day for us and the families as we honor those that have fallen. And also I'd like to just say publicly for our men and women out there, a bunch of the senior staff will be there as well, and we'd like a full attendance as much as possible, even in inclement weather. That is the best time to be out there to dedicate to honor our heroes that have fallen. On the 25th through the 28th of October, we have the California Metro Fire Chiefs meeting and the Cal Chiefs Conference right here in Sacramento this year. Oftentimes it's in Southern California. It'll be locally, which will be a good opportunity for a lot of us to attend. Save the date on the 12th of November is the Dean Baker Crab Feed. It is a association event that will be 6 p.m. at St. John Vianney Parish in Rancho Cordova, and the proceeds will be going to the Metro Fire's Widows and Orphans Fund. If any of the directors or anybody in the audience would like to have more information, we can provide that. New hire, we'd like to, effective on a couple days ago, the 11th, was fire mechanic Phil Morrell, returning to help us out in the shop, and logistics technician Garrett Putman. So welcome back and welcome to Mr. Putman. We are looking for a reassignment opportunity currently for a day training captain position. Final filing date for that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. It'll be the 14th of October. We're also looking for an EMS day captain. Final filing date again is the Friday, October 14th at 4 p.m. We'd like to congratulate the 8 single-role paramedics who were successful in the last firefighter-paramedic examination process and are now eligible to participate in the 17-1 Fire Academy. Further evidence of that program being very successful in transitioning to firefighters. I'd also like to acknowledge and recognize publicly we will be administering a 40-year service pin this next week to Reserve Terry Barnes, and also a 35 years of service pin to Reserve Dennis Berry, and I believe we'll be doing that early next week. Just an announcement, Chief Harms will be coming to the district. First day will be next Wednesday on the 19th. As the Chief Deputy, we're very excited to have him coming on board. We'll have a very packed and crammed calendar until the last day for me, which will be November 10th. And so we'll be transitioning and making a lot of meetings times, meet and greets, and district orientation. So looking forward to that next week. And then I'd like to report out on the PIO. So right now we've been obviously in our Cancer Awareness Month for a couple weeks, and our Pink Engine has been out and about. And we will be next board meeting kind of having a summary. It won't be the end of the month, but it'll be towards the end of the month where we can talk about some of the accomplishments. But I wanted to talk about just briefly, we've had at Station 53 on the B shift, they were out with the Kings and the Kings dancers and staff and the I'll Be Aware Cancer Foundation, and they visited homes of breast cancer survivors, and that was a very powerful event. They gave them bouquets of pink roses and tickets for them and their families to attend the Kings Pink in the Paint game, which happened last Monday night. Much to their smiles and encouragement to suffer through, and what battling heroes they are to overcome their cancers. And then again, the group went off to Arden Fair Mall and handed out a lot of pink memorabilia and encouraged awareness and action. So then the Kings that night, 53 went out to the opening night at the Golden One Arena, had the engine down there. The engine was parked in the plaza in the main entrance, and personnel interacted with thousands of attendees of the game. And then the Kings played the video that they made from the Saturday's event on the Jumbotron for 16,000 people in attendance. So I think I got that backwards a little bit. Saturday morning, 53B did all that. Then Monday, 53C did everything at the Kings game. So just fantastic interaction of our crews, our dedication to this cancer awareness. Cancer obviously affects a lot of firefighters and our families and the community at large, and I know it's a very sensitive issue for all of us, so we're really glad to be part of that, and thank you and kudos to the crews at 53. So I'd also now like to introduce Fire Marshal Casantini. This is also Fire Prevention Month, so our Fire Prevention Week.
Thank you, Chief Wells. Good evening, President Scheidegger, Board of Directors, Chief Wells, Greg Casantini, Assistant Chief Fire Marshal in the CRD Division. So to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which killed 250 people, which burned 17,000 structures, in 1925, President Calvin Coolidge signed into effect Fire Prevention Week, the second week of October every month. So that brings us to today. After 9 decades of fire prevention, which is also the longest running public health and safety observance on record in our nation, we have Fire Prevention Week. And I'd like to bring you up to speed quickly on what Metro Fire is doing for this week as far as education and outreach to our citizens. So we partnered with many different agencies, including 3 school districts, Elk Grove School District, Twin River School District, and San Juan School District, to reach a maximum exposure of 30,000 kids regarding a very extensive coloring contest. The winner is going to receive a $100 gift certificate. And the theme of this year is Don't Wait, Check the Date, regarding the 10-year time to recheck your smoke detectors. After 10 years, we recommend to our citizens to replace the smoke detectors. So that's the theme sent out by the nation this year. Also, Metro Fire has made 3 media appearances this week on Univision Channel 19, CBS 13, and also yesterday at KCRA Live in the morning regarding fire extinguisher training for the public as well as on the television. Currently this week we have 20 current scheduled station tours and show and tells with our fire companies. Also October 12th we'll be traveling out to Anthem Blue Cross, on October 17th to Tykert Construction for fire extinguisher training. And we've also coordinated with our PIO regarding some media awareness on our websites as well. So unless there's any other questions, next month I'd like to give you a quick update that I'll be presenting a very in-depth 5-year fire study that our people have been conducting regarding 5 years worth of extensive data. We're looking at where our fires are in our battalions per station and also our district as a whole, and also how our division is going to change some of our enforcement regarding this data. So thank you very much for your time. Any questions?
Well, first of all, thanks for your report, and we'll look forward to that report later on this month. Thank you. Board members, questions, comments? Back to you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll have Chief Bridge for the ops report.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, President Scheidegger, Board of Directors, Eric Bridge, Operations Chief. It's been 3 weeks since our last report, so the numbers are a little bit up. We've had total calls has been 5,426 calls with 14 structure fires. In the EMS world, we've had a total of 4,000 dispatches, and we continue to maintain a 72% transport rate. And our good partners at AMR have had 267 of those dispatches, of which they've transported 162 of transports total. Keeping consistent with some extra numbers for you so you understand where our busy units are at. Since September 22nd, and this can vary between the units. There's those 3 or 4 units that will share the lead, but the last 3 weeks, the leading busiest medic unit was Medic 101 in our Arden Arcade area with a total of 288 dispatches. And the traumatic injuries continues to be the #1 call type, and we've also had a total of 42 cardiac arrests, unfortunately, since September 22nd. And the reason I bring that to illustrate is it's obviously the most critical and emotional type of call that not only for the civilians, but many times for our folks too, so they do a tremendous job. We did have a few solid field saves on those as well, and our EMS folks are continuing to provide some additional data that we can share to go along with those positive results. So we look forward to hearing those reports in the future. As we continue on, at the air show, we had a good presence there. Cooler weather, though, allowed for our folks on the bikes, our bike medics, to not be as busy. But nonetheless, just to show you what a non-busy weekend looks like for the air show, we had 152 contacts on Saturday from our bike medics. But the good news is they only transported one. And on Sunday, there was 96 contacts with no transports. And for clarification, they didn't transport on the bike. They actually called a unit in there. Just for clarification. Let's see, what else we had on there? Just so you're aware, if you were looking for the pink engine this week, it went to Station 61 in Rancho Cordova this week. And it'll be there until October the 18th. And that concludes my report, unless you have any other questions.
Board members? As always, Chief Bridge, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
General Counsel's report?
Thank you. No report tonight.
Thank you. Anyone here from 522? All right, thank you. Committee and delegate reports. The Executive Committee has not met. Nothing is planned at this point. The Communications Center, JPA. Chief Bridge.
Yeah, Communications Center JPA has not met since the last board meeting. We will meet tomorrow morning at 3121 Gold Canal at 9 o'clock. Look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. California Fire and Rescue Training, JPA, Director Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, the JPA has not met since I last reported out. We will meet again on December 15th.
December 15th, gotcha. Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Director Wood.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. The Finance and Audit Committee has not met since we last reported out. We will meet on Thursday, October 27th, 5 o'clock in this room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Policy Committee, I have it on good authority that Director Rosali will probably give that report.
Good authority.
Welcome back.
Is there anything in it for me? I mean, excuse me. Yes, the Policy Committee met this evening and reviewed and approved the child-related activities leave policy, and there at this time is no next meeting scheduled.
Thank you. We'll go to board member questions and comments. First, Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Board Chair. I would just like to reiterate the comment that I made a little earlier. With the report that we received on the ISO, which was a wonderful report, I believe the chief told us one of the main things was staffing that could help. And knowing that we're going into a new administration, I would like to see this board at least consider, along with the new administration, of setting a goal of having 4-man engines and 5-man trucks, knowing that it might take years to obtain. Also knowing that maybe we could start with just one station. And, I think it would help in that rating, but it would help in the safety of the public as well as the safety of our own personnel. So I feel strongly about that and would like this board to work with the new administration maybe to work towards that goal. I'd like to thank all the presentations this evening, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Gould, thanks for flying in.
Yes, you bet. Thank you. I appreciate the reports that were given tonight. I also want to call out tonight all the men and women who helped with the Sacramento Air Show. That was a phenomenal experience to be there with the battalion chiefs and the chiefs that were involved. And while we had a decent presence from an actual response with our bike medics and call out and support the CERT team that was there and did a good job of assisting, you know, that's a major event for this community. I think 100,000 plus citizens are there. And I hope that in the coming years we're able to throw down a little more. Well, actually throw down a lot, because it's in our first-in neighborhood, and we don't need CAL FIRE being there in a bigger way. And we did some wonderful things, particularly when we had our helicopter up and we were supporting the men and women of the Army and doing some pretty special things. They were very gracious and humbled by what we were able to do. They had flown from all parts of the country to do and show off their skill set, and then some unfortunate things happened where they weren't going to be able to. And because Metro Fire came through, they had nothing but really significant positive comments. But I think it's in our neighborhood, it's where we're at, and I think we need to have a bigger presence there and a great recruitment opportunity, so on and so forth, so that CAL FIRE doesn't show us up. But I really wanted to thank all of those that were involved. I'm definitely hooked, Matt. I'm going every year, dude. You were right on. This last year, he said, "Have you ever been?" I said, "No." And he goes, "You got to go." Well, now Matt and I are probably going to be sitting next to each other every year because it was fabulous. And it was great to see our men and women do such wonderful work and get to meet them also. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, this board, and all the men and women that made that 100,000 attendees see Metro Fire for what they really are. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. Speaking of just flying in, Director Rosali, do you have any comments?
No comments this evening. Thank you.
Director Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would like to comment on is it seems like, well, we've had a couple meetings in a row with these young men, these kids out there doing a fantastic, heroic job. I mean, it's really heartening to see these youngsters. They're so bright and they're just smart kids. And I appreciate that. And I also want to thank the men and women of Metro Fire who also do a heroic job day in and day out. This district is full of heroes as far as I'm concerned. So I just want to thank you for the good work that you do day in and day out.
Well said. Thank you. Director Kelly.
I probably couldn't say it better than Director Gould did, but I did want to thank all the individuals that helped make it a very nice day out at the air show. I think first person I came in contact with was Tyler Wagstaff? Tyler Wagaman, excuse me, thank you. John Graff, Chief Quinn, Chief Johnson, Chief Griggs. There was just an awful lot of people that made the day very nice. So wanted to thank you all and appreciate the hard work that you guys put in that day.
Appreciate those comments. Director Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I want to comment on, and Chief Bridge touched on it, is just to reiterate, as we talk about the heroic events, over 5,000 calls in 21 days. Again, I did my quick math. Ms. Thomas is not here to correct me, thankfully. But that's over 240 calls per day.
She's watching you, dude.
Don't let her calculator out. It's over 240 calls per day, and we talk about life-saving efforts and the community members we reach out and touch on each one of those calls. So it's the testament to the great work that men and women do at Metro Fire. So we appreciate it. And those calls are sometimes people getting woke up, getting dressed out, and it might be something simple, but all the times it's tragic. Sometimes it can be life-saving. So we appreciate all that you do. So thank you.
You betcha. Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know where Directors Gould and Kelly were, but I was at the air show as well. Didn't see either of them. But,
hospitality.
Sucks to be you.
Where's that per diem?
Who you know, dude?
But I did want to say thank you to Engine 50, the C Shift. I did spend some time talking to them, and they were very appreciative and very good to talk with. Along what's already been said, one of my favorite things sitting up here that we get to do each week is recognize members of the public, and Captain Simmons should be recognized as well for bringing that to your attention, bringing that up. We need more of our frontline men and women to bring these opportunities up to recognize people when they do go above and beyond. So thank you to Captain Simmons for doing that, and thank you for bringing Xander here.
That's right. Thank you very much, Director. All right, what we're going to do at this point is move into closed session. Those of you that don't have a need to stay, you're welcome to take off. But we will reconvene in just a few moments. Thank you.
I'm ready for my next event.